So BNI was part of your story. What if anything, shaped how BNI or how has BNI helped shape either your business or your life, do you think?
We were able to develop our own culture, our own accountability methods, and we really leaned on the BNI systems to do that. I mean, in my seat, we don't get referrals on a weekly basis, um, just because of the type of clients that we work with. So it definitely took hard work, and it's not an overnight thing. But I'm grateful now for the lesson that it taught me. And I think everyone will have that experience, not necessarily cancer, but they will have that defining experience in their life about money and relationships and how that impacts them.
Welcome to the Perfect 100, the podcast for BNI members who want to maximize their membership, deepen their impact, and grow their business through intentional networking. I'm your host, Tammy Zurak, a CliftonStrengths coach, longtime BNI leader, and one of the few members worldwide to maintain a perfect Power of One score. Each week, we'll explore the habits, mindsets, and everyday strategies of BNI members who are turning their membership into momentum. Hello, and welcome back to the Perfect 100. I am excited to bring you Jonathan McAllister today. He's with Kimery Wealth Management, and he is a member of my chapter. Not only is he a member, he is the president, at least for another couple of weeks, right? Welcome,
Just a
Jonathan.
few. Thank you
Yeah.
for having me, Tammy.
My pleasure. I know you're excited to, not that everybody doesn't want to be the president after they've done presidency, but I know that wind down at the end of the term is always a little bit of anticipation towards not having to do that same thing over and over.
It is. But you know what? We have a great new leadership team coming in, with Adam Neal and Anna Wells and Daniel Lang staying on as treasurer and secretary. So the chapter's in really good hands.
Yeah, it's a good group, and I'm excited I think we're all excited to, move on to just see what else we can, it's always fun to have that transition and see what's the next flavor of things that people are going to add. But before we get too far, let's let you give us your 45-second story so people know a little bit more about you.
Sure. Good afternoon or good morning. I'm Jonathan McAllister. I'm a certified financial planner with Kimery Wealth Management. We're based here locally in Memphis, but serve clients across the entire country. We really specialize in working with high net worth individuals, families, and business owners. Our role is that of basically an outsourced CFO, where we are not only handling their long-term financial planning, charitable gifting strategies, investment management, but also things like their estate planning, working with their children to make sure that their dreams and wishes are carried on, even after they're gone. So if you know of anyone like that, please send them my way.
Awesome. So how long have you been doing that, and what role has BNI played for you in all of it?
So I've been in practice. December will be 14 years. I joke with my wife that I would be terrible at any other career because this is the only one that I have ever had. And I've been in BNI in the past, and have gotten out for different reasons, and then rejoined and helped to start this chapter. I say start, really joined with you and Tammy and some of the other founding members, back in,
Tiffany,
I
I
think
think
it
you mean
was,
Tiffany, but
or
I knew what you meant.
Tiffany. I'm sorry, Tiffany, Tammy,
Yeah, I know
same
we're
to
interchangeable in our chapter. We're both blondes, and we both help do a lot of stuff, so everybody calls us interchangeable names.
So it joined our chapter, BNI East Memphis, in April of last year, and it has been really phenomenal. I mean, in my seat, we don't get referrals on a weekly basis, um, just because of the type of clients that we work with. They are fewer and farther between, but typically when we get them through a BNI connection, our close rate is, I would say, 90+%, because it's coming from that very warm introduction. The person that's referring us to the potential client has really usually spoken very highly about us. And it tends to be a really good relationship right off the bat with those new clients that we've worked with.
Yeah, that's the having the warm up is really a big piece of, at least, I mean, obviously that's why we all do it, is having not only the connections but the warm handoff to someone that means more, in many cases than any other opportunity to work with somebody, because we're borrowing someone else's trust to get that person, right?
Right. No, that's exactly right. And I would say in our field, trust is the number one thing, right? If you're working with an advisor or an attorney, CPA, someone in that white collar professional capacity, you have to trust them first. And so having that element of trust that's somewhat already established by fellow BNI members just really helps along that process.
For sure. So you've been financial advising for many years. What moment or experience convinced you that taking that journey was the right path for you, advising people on their money?
So I got into this. I went to Mississippi State, started in August of 2007, and my dad was a home builder and developer. And 1 year later, 2008 kind of starts to rear its ugly head. Um, I had a very, very nice childhood. Went to private school, would go down to the beach, and about a year after 2008 happened, we lost the house, lost the
Mm.
car. My parents ultimately filed for bankruptcy, and I was just really floored that this happened because, we had all the trappings of a very, very nice lifestyle. And I come to find out that they had over leveraged themselves, hadn't saved appropriately. They were doing it all themselves, kind of trying to do financial planning, but there really wasn't any long term thought there as far as saving for retirement. Everything was cash flowed. And actually, I switched my major and started going into a financial planning major at Mississippi State, and really haven't stopped doing it since then, and have truly fallen in love with the profession. And then passed my CFP boards when I was 29, so was really young when I passed those, and that was, you know, I think in 2017 maybe.
Okay. Well, that's so interesting. I didn't know that about you. And my husband has a similar story. His dad was they sold campers, RVs. So they're from up north, and um, had a great lifestyle. And they had 6 kids. And then one day, the same thing. Over leveraged and all the things. And they went from having a whole lot of stuff and lots of good things, and to not. And I think that shapes you as a child, in more ways than one, right? So I love that your outcome was you want to help other people to avoid that.
Yeah, no, it definitely shaped me. Like I said, I went from, not having to worry all that much to suddenly I'm going to school full time and then also working, 35, 40 hours a week, trying to pay rent, get money for groceries, and pay my way through school. And it ended up working out. I mean, uh, basically went on my own when I was about 19, going into 20 years old, and was fortunate to only come out with 13,000 of student loans from college and an out of state college. So it definitely took hard work, and it's not an overnight thing, but I'm grateful now for the lesson that it taught me.
Yeah, it gives you an appreciation that can't be felt otherwise, right?
No, I mean, you don't appreciate it unless you have been there.
Right. Yeah, I definitely feel that. So BNI was part of your story. What if anything shaped how BNI, or how has BNI helped shape either your business or your life? Do you think?
So I think it's definitely made me get out of my comfort zone. Um, like I've talked about before, I'm kind of a natural introvert, so being out in front of people all the time is not really my style, and it has made me be a much more confident public speaker. It has put me in front of a group of people that I have not been exposed to before. We work with bankers and attorneys basically on a daily basis. I don't often get to work with a lot of tradespeople we have a great trade group in our chapter. And then there's 2 or 3 people that, I'm able to refer to on a very regular basis. Uh, a pretty significant amount of business. I think one of the biggest thank you for closed businesses that I got was I had a client that was in here and he is asking for a roofer, and I sent him to Jamie Byram, and they got that taken care of. In fact, the client even called me afterwards and said, that was a fantastic experience. Thank you for that.
That's amazing when you get that because it makes you look good, but it reinforces that this is a good thing, right? Is that we can
Right.
trust the people that we have in our immediate circle, so to speak. They become part of our closer. I have high relator, and we're going to talk about CliftonStrengths, shortly. But my number two is relator, so I also
Hmm.
enjoy kind of having that inner circle of people that I trust. The know, like, and trust that we talk about in BNI becomes part of that, right? So
Right.
that's a good thing. We are in the number one chapter in the
We
whole
are.
region.
We are.
So
We're not proud of that at all either,
no,
are
we're
we?
not. And that'll speak to another one of your strengths in a minute. But I also, it's funny because I don't have we'll talk about your number one strength and, when we get there. And I don't actually have that, which is funny because I have it. It's just a little bit lower. We're speaking about competition. I'll just let the cat out of the bag. Jonathan's number one is competition. So it always is a good thing when someone has high competition, they like to be at the top, right? They want
Yes.
to win the race. And we are at the top. But why I asked it or said the question, said that we are, is there, we are what I would consider a thriving chapter. We're on we're continually building and making things better, and we're staying at the top through hard work. When you look at, you've been in other chapters, so you said you've been
Yes.
in and out in different chapters. So what do you think is the biggest single mind shift or cultural change that chapters who are struggling need to make to, what separates the one, like how we are versus others that are not doing so well?
That's a good question. So I think we were fortunate in that we started this from scratch. We were able to develop our own culture, our own accountability methods, and we really leaned on the BNI systems to do that. And being very bluntly honest, I was kind of opposed to it a little bit, just because it does have some rigidity to it, but the rigidity is for a reason. And it took me a while to get on board with that, but it has worked for us. It has worked phenomenally well for us. But I think I go back to what I said a minute ago. It's culture. You have to have a good culture of givers gain. You have to have people that are there for, investing in the chapter. They're not just there to get out what they can get, but they are truly there to give. You have to have a culture of accountability. And I will say, Tiffany Clemmis, who's our VP, has done a great job of leading our membership committee and really holding members accountable when they need to. But also, she and I talk probably at least every other day with chapter issues, and Daniel Lang as well. But we're all on the same page with that. We're not trying to fight each other. We're really trying to lead from the front, and try and build a good chapter that is sustainable.
Yeah, and those are, for those of you that don't know who those people are, they're on the ELT, so they're the leadership out front, and I 100% agree with you that, excuse me, having the right people in those roles working together, and I feel like I talk to Tiffany every couple of days as well over various chapter things, being on
Hmm.
membership committee, being engaged, I think is the big thing, right? Is that we recognize that there's a structure, we follow the structure, even though sometimes that's painful because there's people involved, and that isn't always holding people accountable. It can sometimes be unpleasant. But using the structure that exists has made us, I think has allowed us to create a great, well, I mean, you said culture. I think that's just the best way to put it. So love that.
Yeah,
All right.
no,
So
like I said, I've been in BNI in the past, and the biggest issue I saw with prior chapters was culture. And it was, oh, we've done it this way forever. But then when you look at how it was being done, it's not necessarily advancing them in the right direction. It's just comfortable, and it's what's been done in the past.
yeah. Yeah, well, that definition of insanity, just because you do things the same way and expect a different outcome. I think that's a thing that plagues a lot of chapters, and I see it. I'm a rule follower. I like a structure. I'm very much a do it a certain way, and it will net a very similar outcome when you follow a structure and a process. And that's what a lot of people they're not great in business because they don't have a structure. They don't have a process. They kind of just every day's a new day. And, it doesn't always work like that very well, especially if you hire people because people need structure. But when you look at the results, and that's the end, the end game here is we're all trying to grow our business. And I go into chapters where they don't follow the process that exists and they're not doing it as well. It's evident to me that some of those changes could make a big difference in people's businesses, but the culture here is we don't. So, I mean, it's like, okay, well, if we don't want to do things that help people's businesses, why are we here? That's kind of how it works for me. So let's look at your power of one. So I'll read from the left here. So you have a score of 70, which is in the green.
Which
Your
is
attendance.
not great though. But it is green.
It is green, and that is what we ask for, right? Is green, I always have to make the caveat in case this is somebody's first time listening. Is green? None of this is bad in terms of whether you're red, yellow, gray, whatever you are. It's not bad. I mean, it is bad. It's bad in the respect that you're not gaining what you could from operating the system that I just talked about, right? Is there's a structure, and if you're going to maximize what you're putting, you're paying to be in a seat that is you're showing up every week and putting time in to be able to make money for your business. And if you're not doing all the things that we know work, then this is your report card. So can it be higher? Of course. Can you maximize it more? Yes. But green is where we all strive to be, just because you're getting as much out of, you're getting a good deal of activity that is going to bring you more. And that's what we're going for. So green in the 70 in the green, so 15 points on the referrals, which is yellow, 20 points for, oh wait, I'm reading it wrong. Sorry. Total score of 70, attendance, 15 points. You've had a couple of absences, referrals per week, 20 points in the green, visitors per week, 0 in the gray, one-to-ones per week, 15 points in the yellow, and CEUs per week, 20 points. So tell me when you see that, give me some more comments. Tell me what you think.
Yeah, so the referrals per week have always been fairly strong for me. There's a couple members in the chapter that I can refer to really, really easily. I know one thing that we're looking for right now in our chapter is an estate planning attorney. If we can get a good estate planning attorney, that would be a really natural referral path for me. But really, I'm very comfortable sending someone a referral. From an attendance standpoint, you're right. I've had a couple of absences, so that number is going to be a little bit lower. But I also know that I think I'm 2 percentage points off from getting a full 20 on that too. So I am right there. And then the one-to-ones per week, I am 0.04 away from having a full 20. I have always struggled with visitors. It has not been a strength of mine. And it is something I need to work on though.
Yeah, well, and our chapter does well with visitors because we have a certain subset of folks that are busy finding visitors for us. So it's easy to sort of fall into that sometimes. It's being intentional. But I know that you have when we get to your strengths, you have a lot of things that kind of line up with daily, weekly rhythm of activities, I think. So is there a way you think that, is that just something is just not part of because you're busy head down doing, working with your clients, that you're not necessarily out and about meeting lots of people? Is that kind of how that goes, do you think? Join the Art Academy in Memphis. Master the skills needed to create stunning, realistic oil paintings. With expert instruction, you'll refine your craft. Enroll today at artacademyofmemphis.com.
I think that's a lot of it. So I don't go to chamber events. I don't really do outside networking outside of BNI. A lot of my day, I typically schedule about 2 weeks out. And so I follow a pretty rigid calendar. In fact, I joke with my wife, like, if it is not on my calendar, it does not exist to me. I run my life by my Outlook calendar, and it is how I schedule my day. Like I said, typically about 2 weeks out. As we get closer to the end of the year, that will get a little bit lighter. And then come tax season, when we're working with CPAs or, getting clients 1099s, it still stays at that 2 week point, but the ability to have any flexibility at all really goes away. Because you're fielding phone calls and taking last minute questions, and you have to really be present. So that's a long answer to your question, in that I'm not really out and about meeting other people to invite to the chapter just because of the work that I'm doing here at the firm.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think that every single person necessarily is going to be bringing people all the time. I think some are just more likely to do it than others. I'm out and about a lot, so I'm always in meeting new people. And others, you're sitting behind a desk talking to people, that's kind of makes it more challenging. You just have to figure out, I guess, if that is, if you're, what's the right words? You're looking at it through the lens of building your business,
Hmm.
then are you hitting all the points? So, that, and that's entirely, as long as we're all working together on those fronts, where we know that some can't do this, but others, but here's where I add to the pot, so to speak, then I think that's probably okay. Let's look at your palms too, which is a little bit, more into the nitty gritty. So, this is 20 weeks, and you have so 2 absences, referrals given inside 4, referrals given outside 27, referrals received inside 3, referrals received outside 5, visitors 0, one-to-ones 24, and thank you for close business given 21,946, and 30 CEUs. So seems like you have a process for several of those things. Anything stand out to you that falls into kind of your day-to-day operations, maybe even how you discipline yourself? Do you draw a correlation between the discipline you have with taking care of your clients and the same for BNI, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a different type of responsibility. In our work, we are fiduciaries first. Our clients will always come first in everything that we do. I'm not saying that BNI comes very far behind that, but we have to take care of home base first, as we say,
Yes.
and then we address everything else where we fit it into the schedule. And like I said, I'm very schedule oriented. Um, and so a lot of times I will have, clusters of one-to-ones. I might do 3 or 4 in a week, for a week or so, and then I might go 2 or 3 weeks with nothing. It's not something where I can do it religiously and say, yeah, I can take, an hour and a half on this week, and I'm going to go to lunch with someone or you go to coffee with someone. Because I usually schedule pretty far out, I will fit it in where I can. But I need to be flexible as well, so I can be here and present at the business too.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people do that, and I've talked about that in previous episodes, is I like to schedule as much as I can at the front end of the month. That way, like we're in the beginning of September right now, if you're listening to this later. And we just rolled over to a new month. So I'm now looking at, do I have what I need for the month? And can I accomplish that soon? That way, if you look at your calendar and you say, I've got a very busy week, next week, so can I offload some of the things I need to sort of check the box to get done? So I know that for me, is the pipeline. Making sure that pipeline is full, right? Is we know, for a lot of us, we're solopreneurs, and if you're not out filling the pipeline, if you're not throwing stuff into the top of the funnel, then nothing's coming out the other end. So it's kind of that feast or famine. I find a lot of small business people have that feast or famine cycle, and it's because
Right.
they're not consistently planning, right? So if you're looking at if you live by the calendar, then it's a great way to see, okay, I've got to knock these things out because these are going to fill my funnel. It'll help my BNI member team help me fill in the funnel while I'm out working. So good stuff there. All right, so let's talk about your Clifton strengths, since we've alluded to it a number of times now.
Well, let's get
So
to it.
Yes. So your number one is competition. I don't think I've had anybody on that whose number one is competition. You measure your progress against the performance of others. You strive to win first place and revel in contests. Number two is relator. You enjoy close relationships with others and you find deep satisfaction in working hard with friends to achieve a goal. Number three is consistency. You are keenly aware of the need to treat people the same. You crave stable routines and clear rules and procedures that everyone can follow. Number four is analytical. You search for reasons and causes. You have the ability to think about all of the factors that might affect a situation. And number five, developer. You recognize and cultivate the potential in others. You spot the signs of each small improvement and derive satisfaction from evidence of progress. So, where do you see those coming together most for you and most powerfully in your business, would you say?
Yes, I think in my business personally, um, I really enjoy having something to measure myself against. And I have thought about in the past going out on my own and kind of launching, my own firm. And I just don't think it's for me. One reason is I really enjoy measuring my practice against my partners here, and it is a friendly competition with us. You know who is bringing on the best clients, who's bringing on the largest clients, who has the highest client retention rate, which I really think is one of the more important aspects that we don't talk about a ton. Um, that from a competition standpoint is wonderful, but then I also see it bleeding into my personal life as well, where I just want to try and be the best at everything I can be, uh, and finding ways to get there.
Yeah, well, and you have, I mean, just reading your profile, a lot of your things together are, the blend of things because that top five is your unique set of superpowers are all blended together in those top five strengths. I think that you have you think about things different. Well, we all do. We think about it in the way our strengths are, but you have a very specific regimented kind of even would you say at home? Does that play out for you at home too? Kind of how you live your day to day at home? Do you have structure, process, that kind of stuff?
I really do. We were so perfect example of this, the Delta Fair is in town.
Yes.
And my wife and daughter kind of sprung it on me Saturday morning and said, "Hey dad, let's go to the Delta Fair." And I said, "No, we've already talked that we're going to clean the house today. We have laundry to put away, we have dishes to do. That needs to be done first. We've talked about that. We had a verbal agreement with it." And then I was quickly reminded that I am the male in the household, and I was overruled by the two females in the household.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I think that's so funny, 'cause, that is I think my dad must have some of that because that is, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do this, and this is how we're gonna do this until it's done, and it's gonna be done right.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's how I was raised. My dad was ex-military, my grandfather was ex-military, and it was you do these things first,
Yes.
and then you move on to B.
Yeah, same, and my dad was military also, so I don't know if that's a I think for him it was I mean, it's probably built into his strengths, but, he kinda grew up in a little bit of chaos, so he created the military was a great way for him to have structure, learn structure, and operate structure. So, and that obviously translated to me because I, followed in those footsteps. I enjoy a process and a structure too. So, consistency and analytical, sometimes those can feel rigid. And, maybe
Yes.
that's what we were just talking about, right? Is when you put them together with developer, that can add to it. So, how do you balance the numbers with the human side of things when you're talking about somebody's financial journey?
You you can't. It's so much of what we do, people think we sit behind a desk and trade stocks or bonds all day, or we look at a 401k all day. That is maybe 10% of my everyday. 90% of what I do is talking with clients, working through issues, and then solving the problem. Right. So that may be, hey, we own a business. We're going through an expansion right now with an SBA loan. We have our house, but we've outgrown it. But we found our dream home, and we want to be able to afford it without drowning ourselves in debt. What levers do we pull to make that happen? Um, it's really dealing with people's emotions and money at the exact same time. I mean,
Right.
the exact same time. I'm working on a situation with a client in Texas right now, and they're wonderful people. I've worked with them for over a decade at this point, and you know they're going through a unique situation like that where you have money at play, but you also have the emotional side of things at play, and you have to be able to balance those because very, very, very few people can purely look at the money side of things and say, yes, this is this is the best way to do it, and be able to completely ignore the emotional aspect as well.
Right. Well, I think that plays to your relator too, right? Is your relator's about deep connections with people and, on an ongoing basis. And so, do you think that those authentic relationships are the keys to working with clients who are, they have lots of different choices for financial advisors?
They
You
do.
throw a rock and you can hit one. It's kind of like a realtor. Do you think that that's a big piece of what you do?
I think it is. Yeah. And that's so I think I have 90 clients right now, maybe 95, which is not a lot. In our industry, it is not uncommon to have thousands of clients if you're working at, a Morgan Stanley or a Wells Fargo or one of these, massive institutions. As a firm, we have, I think, under 500 clients. We've run about over $500 million now between the four advisors and our five staff. So we really prioritize those deep relationships, actually knowing our clients and being able to spend time with them versus seeing it as a transactional relationship and just, all right, yep, I'm taking this order, I'm getting off the phone. Uh, if a client needs it, I'll spend 2 hours on the phone with them, and I'll tell the other appointments that day, hey, I need to push, or can we reschedule? I have an issue that really demands full attention, and I don't want to discount them, nor do I want to cut your time short. So, let's be flexible here. But a lot of credit to my clients for that. Most of them are extremely flexible. They understand that, and I think they appreciate it too.
Sure. Yeah, I would assume that they've asked for your time. Probably they recognize that they're potentially taking time from someone else, but they want, it kind of what goes around comes around. They're going to get theirs also. So, what's a common mistake that you see successful people making with money that others could avoid?
Lifestyle creep.
What does that mean?
So lifestyle creep, if let's say someone's making $100,000 a year, it could be from W-2 wages, it could be from self-employment, it could be from contract work, and suddenly their income just skyrockets, and they go from $100,000 a year to $250,000 a year. Instead of incrementally increasing their lifestyle, they suddenly start spending like they're making $250,000 a year. They keep saving the same amount, but the same amount is maybe relative to the 100,000, not relative to the 250,000. And suddenly now they're in a massive house that they maybe can't afford. They've got kids in private school. They've went out and bought the new car. They bought a vacation house, didn't save up an appropriate down payment. And they come to me 3 or 4 months later and they're like, I'm making all of this money, but at the end of the month, I feel completely broke. Like what's happening? And 9 times out of 10, it's lifestyle creep.
Okay. So it's kind of like the people who win the lottery and they came from, oftentimes they're not making a ton of money and all of a sudden they have this big sum of money and they start going crazy. And they've done studies where years later, almost all those people have lost all that money.
Yeah, I would say to a lesser degree. I think in our field, if the person has come from humble origins and they are not trust fund babies, but they have put themselves through education, they've started their own business, they appreciate the hard work. You don't see it as much in them. A lot of times when we see it in a way. It happens very, very slowly too. The dollar amounts aren't as large as say when someone wins the lottery, which I think now the Powerball is at 1.3, 1.4 billion.
Yes, my husband was telling me about that. We need to go buy a ticket.
Yeah. I also heard the odds of winning it are 1 in 293
Yeah, it goes
million right now.
it's It's crazy because it goes like everybody waits till it gets really big, but the odds significantly reduce. Then, would you be happy if you won a couple million with you'd have much better odds if you just played, if you're going to play, you might as well do it when it's low because your odds are better. But yeah, keep going.
Well, I think it, what I'm getting to is the same point as the lottery is that, necessarily making more money necessarily will not improve quality of life. It will not raise your happiness quotient. It won't necessarily make you happier. And people think all the time, like, oh, if I just do this, if I make this, then I'm going to be happier. And in all reality, you really won't. And a lot of what we do is just trying to keep people on a steady path. So when the hurricane comes or the storm comes, we need to be the steady element in the life. We need to be the ship in the storm that is not rocking by the waves, and just really keeping them aligned with their goals, but more importantly, their values.
Awesome. Love that. So, if you could, not everybody listening here is going to be a high net worth client, so to speak, but if you could give us just one or two practical tips that we could take to start building wealth, what would those be?
Yeah, I would say one, pay attention to taxes. Taxes are always going to be there. Death and taxes are certainties. But two is follow a plan. If you're not working with what I refer to, what our industry refers to as a fee only fiduciary, make sure that you are. The Department of Labor several years ago started to come out with these rules and regulations, and they're still kind of unclear as far as who can call themselves a fiduciary and who cannot. There are advisors out there that are called dual registrants, where they can act as a salesman and earn commissions on products, and then they can act in a fiduciary capacity, which is where they are only paid by their clients. I have firmly believed since I got out of the commissioned world that fee only fiduciary is the way to go, because it removes conflict of interest at all times. Clients don't worry about, is he being paid under the table to recommend this to me? That does not exist in our world. The SEC forbids it. Ethics forbids it. Um, and frankly, I value my licensure much more than I do any
Yeah,
sort of small commission that we have been offered.
sure. And you said pay attention to taxes. What does that mean?
Yeah, so pay attention to taxes, how things are taxed, the timing of taxes. If someone's self-employed or a high-earning W-2, how do you reduce tax brackets in an effective manner by funding 401ks, SEP IRAs, spousal IRAs? Make sure that you're using tax advantaged investments like Roth IRAs for retirement, 529s for your children, but also don't ignore things that you can access at any time, because everything that I just mentioned has a goal behind it, right? It's either retirement driven or education driven. People also need the other side of the equation, which is, all right, I need to buy a new car. How do we save up for that? And you just need to be knowledgeable about, how do you really set yourself up? How do you build your financial house in a way that you're not putting yourself in a position to not have access to funds when you need them?
Staying ahead in a world driven by technology is key. At Wisdom Integrators, we don't just solve problems, we create opportunities. Wisdom Integrators, connecting your world, solving your problems.
Yeah, that's I didn't figure that stuff out until I was older, unfortunately. I actually sold insurance when I was in my 20s and recognized that there was some value in, they have like whole life policies where you can start to
Hmm.
build wealth, that way. And that was kind of my first introduction to, I need to really look ahead. But when you're in your 20s, you find that you need all the money you make.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? It's really hard to save, because you're not making as much as you would like to, or you're not seeing the big picture because you're too young to see the big picture. Is you're not saving for your future because it's better, you having the things or the look or the experience, might be more important to you in those days than having a future because you just can't see if 20 years or 30 years later that you would rather have the money, than have the thing. So
No,
I
I
love.
think there's The flip side of that coin, though, is you get one shot at life. And I went through cancer 3 years ago. It drastically changed my outlook on how we save and how we spend. And I think everyone will have that experience, not necessarily cancer, but they will have that defining experience in their life about money and relationships and how that impacts them. And since then, we have started to spend much more freely, but we still make sure that we are saving what we need to. We're just not trying to oversave at this point.
Yeah, that's interesting you took that tack as so you are a saver is what it sounds like, not a spender, which is probably why, and we can analyze all the way back to if you're, at least for my husband, going through what he went through as a child with his family, having money, then not having money. He
Hmm.
likes to save money. Other people like to spend lots of money. So, it depends on your personality is when you go through those big life changes is what way does that alter me? And, it always has some sort of impact, whether that's in your case, you said do things that are fun now because I'm here now to enjoy them. Or
Right.
in other people's cases, it might be I need to start saving more because I might not be here. Depending on the personality of the person. Um, that's really an interesting take on things. When you look back at your career so far, what habit do you think what would you give credit to for the ability to go from where you were, kind of starting out to where you are now in your success, if you will?
I really struggled with talking to people when I was just new into this career. It scared it honestly, excuse my French, it scared the ever loving hell out of me. To go out and talk to someone I had not known. I was a 22, 23-year-old kid and asking someone, "Hey, I want you to trust me with your financial future." And I had this massive imposter syndrome. And I think I was having a one-to-one with Anna Wells, who owns Anna's Pet Care in our chapter. She said, she was talking about her imposter syndrome. And I said, "Oh, I still have it. My goal is to cross managing $100 million of assets this year. I will probably do it. I think I'm 2 or 3 million away right now.
Nice.
And I still have it because I'm still just working through that. And part of that, I think, is being competitive and just wanting to find, all right, how do we optimize it? How do we make it better? How do we become the best firm, the best practice that we possibly can be all the time?
So playing to your strengths, in other words.
Yes. Try, trying to, trying
Yeah,
to.
understanding them and utilizing them sounds like a good thing. So if you're an introvert and what you just spoke to speaks to not really wanting, imposter syndrome, all those things can make networking feel intimidating. What's an insider practice that you have used to kind of overcome networking to make it easier or more effective for you?
So very rarely will you see me go up and actually initiate a conversation with someone. It still scares me. I don't know why. It just does. It's who I am, and I've accepted that now. A lot of times when we're having open networking, from 11:30 to 11:45, I will often go up to two people or three people that are already talking, kind of interject myself into that conversation, or just stand and listen and really get to know what they're talking about, then add my 2 cents. And that's typically how I will enter a conversation. I understand that's not the most polite way to do it either, especially in the South, but it's what works for me.
Yeah. Well, if it gets you talking, that's half the battle, right?
Right.
It's funny. So I've been the last couple of episodes, I've been sort of hinting to, I've created a tracker. I called it the Perfect 100 Networking Tracker because I feel like not just in BNI, and not everybody listening to this might be in BNI. So, and that might even seem intimidating to come to a BNI meeting is like, wait, there's going to be 30 or 40 people that are all going to be wanting to talk to me, and I have to stand up and talk in front of. That can sound intimidating, but people still have to grow their business. So I created this tracker. It is basically to give someone who doesn't naturally network. I'm a natural networker. This stuff just kind of comes to me, like I don't even think about it. It's just kind of in my DNA. But for someone like my husband or maybe like you who doesn't naturally understand not that you don't understand it, but it's not you have to kind of talk yourself into it, right? As
Yeah,
you have
it's not a huge strength of
Right.
mine.
It's just not it's not your driving force, so to speak, is you're not getting energy from going to do that. So you have to kind of talk yourself into it. Would having a game plan before you walked into a room full of people you didn't know help you, do you think?
I think it would. I think I also have to, and I've been doing this over the past probably 6 months. I have to learn how to reframe my mindset and really go into it and say, these people are here because of the giver's gain philosophy of BNI. They want to help me. I need to be able to tell them how they can help me. And then conversely, I need to ask them, how can I help you? And once I get in that mindset, I might spend a minute or two in my car doing it, but really reframing that and saying, all right, not hyping myself up for the meeting necessarily, but just getting in the right headspace. That has helped me. But something like that Perfect 100 tracker would work great as well.
Yeah, I love that because, and I'm looking at your strengths over here. You could gamify that, right? Is you
I can.
can take your strengths because you have competition, and that's actually on the tracker is using your strengths to give yourself an opportunity to exercise your superpower, so to speak. Is you can, since you have competition, is if you maybe go with a friend or if you know somebody there that's going to be there is make it a competition, right? So
Hmm.
that gives you, obviously in a BNI meeting, there are other people that So, you could make it in before, if you see somebody walk in and go, I'm going to talk to two more people than you today,
Right.
or something along those lines. But trying to, I love that you're sitting and thinking about it. That's half the battle is if you can think, I have, um, my number one strength is strategic. So I'm going to think of a strategy before, if I'm sitting in the car, if I intentionally think about something before I go in, is how can I maximize that or even talk to somebody about that is, because people are going to ask you questions, right? When you go to any kind of networking event, their first question is usually, what do you do?
What
You
do you
know?
do? Here's my business card. Call me if you
Yes.
need X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
And so that to me on the relator side, I really want to know someone before I'm going to send them a referral like that, just because we're, in our role, we're in such a position of heightened trust with the public and with our clients. The worst thing that can happen, I think, in our business is me to recommend someone, say they're going to do a great job for you, and then it go terrible. Oh, I will take that so personally.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we all feel like that. I mean, that if you're gonna put your name on the line, you want it to go well, right? So,
Right.
and that for me is oftentimes a way that I bring people in as a visitor is, I have a very close network of people that I know, like, and trust. And I'd love to introduce you to them, right? And people are like, oh, okay, well, that sounds interesting. People want to be invited to the inner circle, and
They
as
do.
relators we have an inner circle. That's what we rely on is we don't relator people with high relator they don't want to necessarily. Now I have other strengths that complement my relator that actually allow me to flex in and out of, I can meet lots of people and it doesn't drain me. I'm also so I've done disc or not disc but Myers-Briggs, where it's
Hmm.
you do whether your E or an I is on a scale, and my E is introverted versus extroverted, and the line is in the middle. I'm very close. I'm on the other side. I'm an extrovert, but I also can roll into the introvert depending on how busy I've been, right? Is if I've been talking to hundreds of people, when I go to a conference, I've worked conferences where I've spoken in front of lots of people and lots of people want to come and talk to me. By the end of that day, I'm ready to go lock the door and not talk to anybody and they say that it's kind of a scale, right? If you're an introvert, it doesn't mean you can't talk to people. It just means you need more time to recover. And so kind of the equal amount of time you've outputted, so to speak, is you need that alone time to kind of recharge your battery, so to speak. And I'm that way too. So but I have kind of the other supporting characters that allow me to kind of show up in a room and it doesn't bother me because I go in with intention to build my network and build my business. But if you, I think that intentionality is the big piece here. Is if you show up with a plan, then that's half the battle. So love
Right.
that.
Yeah, and I think I differ a little bit in that approach. If I'm going into a room of people, I am typically going in there to have fun and try and enjoy it. I have never liked, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I've never liked networking for the sake of networking. It is draining to me. But if I can go into a room with say 50, 60 plus people and have fun, I will have a blast, and I will be the life of the party. And my wife would tell you that about me. But I will need that time to recover. When we get home, I need a couple hours to just mentally decompress and really digest everything that just went on.
Right. Well, and my husband's like that too, where he just needs to go shut himself in his office. Like he doesn't, come up for air for a while.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because
I need to go swim in the pool. I need to watch college football, and I just need quiet. That's it.
yes, yeah, don't talk to me for a while.
No, nope.
So, what's exciting to you in your business right now? Anything new projects on the horizon? Anything you want to talk about?
We've got some stuff working right now. Can't quite talk about it yet. But crossing 100 million will be a big landmark for me. I'm 35. I'm no, sorry, 36, about to be 37. So that is a big landmark that I really never saw myself getting to, and it's very, very attainable now. That's a big one. The one big beautiful bill act that just got passed a couple of months ago, we're still digesting that, seeing how that applies to the practice and clients, and starting to implement some of it. But most of what we're doing every day is still blocking and tackling and just making sure that clients are taken care of.
That's big. That's big. That's what we need, right? So when you look forward, what do you want your legacy to be? Whether it's your business or in the lives of the people that you work with, what would you hope that your legacy would turn out like?
Yeah, I've been asked that before, and I think it will ultimately be, you helped send my kid to college, you helped us retire when we didn't think we could. And then personally, it's going to be, leaving a legacy for my wife and daughter when I'm no longer here, which is my ultimate responsibility as a father and a husband, is taking care of them and making sure that what happened to my family, my parents, does not happen to them.
Right.
And so if I can do that, I will be very, very satisfied with my life.
That. All right. So we've been doing a thing where the last guest leaves a question for the next guest. So
Okay.
the last guest left you this question. If you find someone in your chapter or in another chapter that is struggling in BNI right now, what might you do to support them?
Hmm. My wife Shelly has this thing called a lemon squeeze. And I think it's just asking someone straight up, hey, let's go to lunch. I want to talk to you about how I can help you. It seems like you're struggling right now. And then just go, and have a very honest conversation with them. You don't need to sugarcoat conversations like that. If you show up and you're vulnerable and you say, how can I help you? I want you to be here. I really enjoy you in this group. I like sending you business. How can I help you be better? Or how can I help you get more out of this? And you're really vulnerable in that conversation. I think they will get a lot out of that.
Yeah, well, and I love that from the aspect that you take the vulnerability first. Is oftentimes we can see sometimes that people are struggling, or maybe we can't, but we never ask that question. And people sometimes are very proud and don't want to say that they're struggling. So they may or may not ask for help. But when confronted with, hey, I'm here for you. Oftentimes in that one-to-one situation, they'll let their guard down and give you what you need to be supportive. How does that transfer to the lemon squeeze, though? I'm not getting the
Yeah,
correlation.
the lemon squeeze is just more so just hitting the nail on the head and not beating around it.
Got it.
I don't know where she got the lemon squeeze from, but we use it in our marriage, and sometimes she'll say it's time for a lemon squeeze with X, Y, and Z, and I'm like,
Mm.
oh, that's not going to be a fun conversation for them sometimes. Um,
the, the
I, I,
code.
yeah, oh yeah, I try and avoid the lemon squeeze on myself, because I know those are not fun conversations.
That's
But
hilarious.
her strength is communication. She got her undergrad in UT about it with it, and then got her MBA from CBU here locally in communication. And she is a fantastic communicator. I am not so much sometimes. I like to internalize, and she externalizes.
Well,
But
and that's a good thing in a marriage when you have a good balance, right?
it is. But the lemon squeeze is really about just hitting the nail on the head, addressing the problem or addressing some seen or unseen issue, and saying, how do we work past this?
Right. That makes sense. So finally, if you could leave listeners with one guiding principle about business, money, or life, what would it be?
Probably about life, and it's that you get one of these. You don't have to be the absolute best in everything that you are. Just try and find balance in your life where you can. And I'm a parent, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I run a practice, and I get pulled in all these different directions, as does everyone else. And so just do the best that you can. Obviously, family is first. Family is always going to be first in our world. And so if you can prioritize your family, make sure that they're taken care of, everything else will follow along with that.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with us today. I appreciate having you as a guest.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for listening to The Perfect 100. If you want to grow your business through networking, be intentional about those efforts and measure your success, I want to make sure everybody can get a perfect 100. Make sure you download the free networking tracker that I talked about on theperfect100.com. It's designed so anybody inside or outside of BNI can utilize your strengths, to get the most out of your networking. Your CliftonStrengths is a piece of that networking. So when you grab that tracker, it'll give you a chance to use those. It'll also, when you go to that download, give you a chance to purchase your CliftonStrengths assessment directly through me. If you've been listening to these episodes, you know that knowing what your strengths are can be extremely helpful. So you'll be able to get that opportunity to buy the assessment. It's really inexpensive to get your top 5. So you just need that anyway. But it's also going to give you an opportunity for special discount on coaching if you want to take it to the next step. So if this has added value for you listening to this episode, please share it with somebody who you think would benefit from it. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss an episode, and that helps me. And for my BNI members, make sure to give yourself a CEU credit, because this was an hour long, so you get a CEU credit. And that subscribing piece would be a great give back to me in return for what you've just listened to. But thank you. This has been The Perfect 100, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to The Perfect 100. If today's episode sparked a new idea or inspired you to show up differently in your chapter, share it with your team, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a conversation. And if you're curious about your own CliftonStrengths and how to bring out the best in yourself or your chapter or your business, head to TammyZurak.com to learn more about building your superpowers into everything you do. Keep showing up, keep connecting, and keep building your perfect 100.